Right now in Modern, there are a couple different Grixis decks being played. This one is Grixis Delver. So some of the versions a couple months ago did have Jataxian Probe. Obviously, that card is no longer available. So this is the current list that I'm working with. So the mana base is straightforward. There's lots of fetch lands because you're trying to get cards into your graveyard. That's the name of the game in order to make the Taskers and the Gurmag Anglers as good as they can be. So fetch lands help you do that. Another thing that fetch lands help you do is you have Delver of Secrets, which you can use as a clock. You can also use it as a way to set up your draws. So maybe you see a card on top of your deck that you don't want with the Delver of Secrets. You can then shuffle it away with a fetch land. You can put it into your graveyard with a Thought Scour. So the utility of seeing your top card with Delver is really nice. And when you do flip it, 1 mana 3/2 flyer in this deck is just great. Serum Visions also can help you set up your top card to make sure that you are flipping the Delver when you want to flip it. And there's so many instants and sorceries in the deck that Delver flips a decent amount of the time. 2 copies of Spell Snare. So this is one of the better counter spells in Modern. And there aren't that many counters in the deck, so there's 2 Spell Snares, 3 Mana Leaks. Spell Snare is great on the draw and against decks with 2 drops, but it is matchup dependent. You do board it out, as there are some decks that just don't have that many 2 drops, and the Spell Snare becomes more of a liability. So Thought Scour is a good way to help fuel an early Delve creature. So 1 mana to put 3 cards in your graveyard, and it replaces itself. So it does a lot, and it's very synergistic here. You will see Thought Scour in Grixis decks because it works well with Delve, but you won't see it in more of a traditional, say, blue-white control deck, or a deck that doesn't need to put cards in its own graveyard. So there's a few different removal spells in the deck. Both Fatal Push and Lightning Bolt are able to be in the deck, and having 1 mana removal in this format is really important to be able to combat all the creature decks that you're gonna face off against. And 1 mana removal also works particularly well alongside Snapcaster Mage because you're able to use the Snapcaster Mage for 3 mana and then kill something as well. So Fatal Push and Lightning Bolt, premium removal spells, probably the best 2 removal spells, or at least in the running for the best 2 removal spells in Modern. And they are one of the main reasons why you want to be going into the Grixis colors. So Mana Leak, the other counterspell besides the Spell Snare, and it's just a versatile card. It's not particularly great, but you also want some way to interact with the opponent and to be able to counter your opponent's spells, because any type of control-ish deck, which this is control-ish, it's not full-on controlling with cards like Cryptic Command, but you do want the cheap counter and interaction. There's 3 Terminates as another removal spell, so this deck really has a lot of options for removal. Collective Brutality, there's 1 main, 1 sideboard. It's great against any type of aggressive deck, but it also is good against combo decks because you're able to use it as a discard spell. So it's just a versatile card. We're seeing more and more of Collective Brutality in Modern right now. Colligan's Command is basically your late game card. So you can use Snapcaster plus Colligan's Command. You can bring back your big Delve creatures, and it's just another versatile option where maybe you want something that gets rid of an artifact, or your opponent has 1 card in hand that you need to discard. So it does a lot of little things. And 1 Vendilion Click as another hand disruption option. Then we have our Delve creatures, and there's 4 of them. So you don't want too many Delve creatures. in the deck because they're not good when you draw too many of them, but if you say draw one Tasker or one Gurmag Angler, plus a lot of the cantrips, maybe a Colligan's Command also, it's going to be very nice. And you can feel these out on turn 2 alongside a Thought Scour pretty easily. So looking at the sideboard, the matchup against Dredge is not great, so there are 3 Leyline of the Voids to accommodate for that, but the Leylines also come in other spots as well. So I like those a little bit more than Surgical Extractions. You could play either one in that spot. Shatterstorm is the Affinity and Lantern Hoser of choice. Countersquall and Dispel are for the control matchups mostly, but you'll bring them in other spots. Maybe you're playing against Burn or something else where you really want these counterspells. And Ancestral Visions and Thoughtseizes are more mid-range options, so Ancestral Visions especially comes in the grindier matchups. Thoughtseize, it is another card against combo, and you can use Snapcaster plus Thoughtseize as a way to rebuy the discard, so it's kind of like sometimes you have 2 Thoughtseizes with a Snapcaster Mage rather than 1. And then Dreadboard's another removal spell, and we're seeing more decks play Planeswalkers, so sometimes you need to get one, like a Liliana, get that thing off the board, and Dreadboard allows you to do that, and then the additional Collective Brutality. So I like the Grixis Delver list. It's actually lost a little bit of popularity recently, but it's still a good choice, and I'm happy to be playing with it